to me, reminds me of childhood memories when everything was as bright as the bluest sky. Now and then when I see your face, it takes me away to that special place. But if I stare too long, I probably break down.
First, he started out with a chemotherapy pill called temolazide, and at the same time he started radiation treatment, and he did that for 2 weeks. He did real intense radiation treatment at the site of the big tumor, because he had, we believe at this point he probably had maybe up to 5 tumors, but he had a really big tumor. It was totally causing him to lose the use of his arm and leg, so they targeted that one. Yeah, the radiation, he lost all his hair, and he was tired all the time. He could only be up for about a half hour at a time, and then he'd sleep for 2 hours, and then he'd be up for a half hour again, and sleep for 2 hours. After he finished the radiation, he continued on chemotherapy, and he tried a drug called Avastin, which we were the first people in San Diego to try it. State-of-the-art drug, and even the nurses at the hospital didn't even know what it was. And the doctor also had him on steroids, which made him gain about 35 pounds, so he was pretty miserable there. But the Avastin worked pretty well for almost a year. And then it just stopped working. These tumors just find a way around and start growing again. So because this disease is considered incurable, there's very, very small amount of people who survive it. The United States medical had run out of any other options. So at that point, the doctor said to me, we don't have really anything else. They basically said, without saying, that your son's going to die. And that they could give him some oral chemotherapies they could try, but most likely it probably wouldn't do anything. And so I said, well, you know, what would you do if it was your kid? And they said I would just make him feel comfortable until it's over. So that wasn't acceptable for me. So I started looking around, and I found a video about a little 8-year-old girl who had a tumor at the same spot that Jake had. And she was at a point where she couldn't see and she couldn't walk, and they did treatments for about a month and a half with her, and it completely went away and she survived. The only problem was it was in India. It was not licensed in the United States, and it looked like, and still looks like, it won't be for maybe 10 or 15 years. So we had to go to India, and the insurance companies at that point won't give you any kind of benefits when you go out of the country. So it was going to be all on our own, to do it all on our own financially. But when Jacob got sick, the machine was only being used for cancer for about 6 months. So the guy in India explained it to me like this. He said, in India, perhaps we develop things too fast without testing them. And in the United States, too slow and too careful. Well, I do think, in the end, even though Jake died, I do think that the Cytotron was very effective. But the problem was, it's about a 30-hour plane ride once you make the layovers, and it was just too much for him. Had the machine been legal here, I could have just gone maybe to UCLA or even just to San Diego and continued treatment. And I think that may have saved him. I think there has to be a balance between saving people and taking some chances. I think India takes more chances, and sometimes that turns out good, and probably sometimes that turns out bad. But in the end, perhaps the patient should be the one to decide what he wants to do, instead of having to fight the bureaucracy to get things done. I can't say enough about, when something like this happens, and of course it's the first time it ever happened to me, and hopefully the last, it certainly is nothing that you plan. And it certainly caught us by surprise right after his 18th birthday, and he was a guitar player, and he was just really a great kid. All of a sudden you're thrust into a situation where you have to figure out what to do. But the one thing that I found, as bad as cancer was and as bad as everything was, what I found was great were the people who helped us. From the nurses, to the doctors, to the hospital, to all of our friends, to my neighbors, everybody who raised money, to social justice, who's helped after Jake has died. And I'm sort of just a basket case and just trying to focus every day without waking up and thinking about that my son died. Trying to get back to work, and my life was on hold for about 2 years because I couldn't do anything really but take care of Jake. So the one good thing over all of this is I have a very good feeling about humanity. I think 90% of the people really are great and really go out of their way to help other people. So that's the only good thing that happened through this whole thing. For social justice, I certainly absolutely want to thank you guys and your teacher. It must be a great class, and I'm sure a good teacher, so thanks guys.